Hello and welcome to the AzureWell podcast. I'm your host today, HR Payne, and today we're going to be diving into one of the most overlooked guardians of our health, and that's our lymphatic and immune system. Oftentimes, we think of our immune system as just hiding out in our nose or our throat, our ears, because that's kind of where we feel it when our immune system is run down, but it's truly woven throughout our entire being. It's in our sleep cycle. It's in the calm of our thoughts. It's in our gut health. And what we're going to learn today is about our immune system and how it's connected to our lymphatic system. This lymphatic system is really our lymph nodes and our organs like the thymus and the spleen, which are truly our lifelines of our protection, filtering and nourishing and directing our immune health. Today we're here with Dr. Alphonzo Monzo, naturopathic doctor, and he's going to uncover how to strengthen our immune system starting now, because really here's the truth. The best defense, we've heard this before, the best defense is a good offense. Supporting our immune system isn't about scrambling for panic remedies or giving our body that fizzy synthetic vitamin C when it's feeling run down. When you're not feeling well, true resilience of the immune system starts by staying 2 steps ahead. Dr. Monzo, it's great to have you again. It's great to see you, sir.
Yes, thank you, HR. Here we are again, and the AzureWell podcast, I guess, watchers.
Yes.
Only, but I think most people watch.
Dr. Monzo, many people are familiar with the idea of fighting off colds and the flu, but don't realize the immune system isn't just about one thing. It's actually this beautifully complex network of several major systems that are critical lifelines to our overall immune system, in our immune defenses.
Yes. And then there's we're probably going to keep it pretty simple today, but we could get really deep into, I think a lot of people are now realizing that science isn't done. And there's so much we don't know about the immune system yet. And there's a whole different perspective on how the immune system works from a biophysics concept on how the cells communicate with light and frequency. And maybe we're getting into that a little bit in here today, but we're going to kind of stick to the lymph system mainly today, because we've had one other podcast where we talked about the immune system, and that was like a kind of broad based, this is the immune system. Yeah. This one, we're going to go a little bit more specific on something that I think everyone struggles with. If there's 2 things we see show up on almost every single person that we do bioenergetic scans, it's they need liver support and they need lymph support. And lymph support is the one that a lot of people have just never heard. Everyone knows about liver to some degree, but lymph is like, I've never heard of that, or they don't realize how important it is. And so we're
fantastic. Well, yeah, let's dive in.
All right, so if you bring up the slides here, we have the first one. So we're calling this the lymphatic lifeline. I think that's interesting because I've only heard that referred to 2 things. And there's one was called the liver lifeline, which is a really good teaching and concept, because really without the liver, your body is not going to be able to do much. And the other one is the lymphatic lifeline, and it really is because it does so much. And we're going to get into that. So here's our basic outline as always. We're going to talk about the basics of immune defense in the lymphatic system. We're going to get into the root causes of why they become imbalanced. We're going to talk about lifestyles that help improve the lymphatic system, nutrients, and then, of course, supplements that Azure has that are going to help you with your immune lymphatic system and just a whole lot more. So the basic immune system, it's divided into two basic groups. At least this is how I do it. Everyone's a little bit different on how they talk about the immune system. I like to divide it in two major systems, and that is the blood immune system. That means immune functions or cells that actually exist kind of in the blood. And then the other one is the lymphatic system. And so today we're going to mostly talk about lymphatic, which if you're looking at this chart, most of the things on there are actually the lymphatic system, your appendix and the spleen and the thymus and the lymph nodes and stuff. So the immune system is a complex network of organs, cells, proteins that defend the body against infections, protects your body's cells. And what's interesting about the immune system is when it comes across an invader and has to fight it. And I don't know if anyone's ever got to see this. It's really cool. Usually you don't see it unless you're doing like live blood analysis, but you can take a drop of blood and put it on a slide and look at it, and you can see your little white blood cells, and they're moving around. And when they find something it's not supposed to, they kind of go around it like Pac-Man, and then you see all this little movement, and eventually the thing's gone. And that's your white blood cells attacking something and eating it up. But then it has a record of everything it comes in contact with. And in the future, if you come in contact with that same substance, the immune system can quickly go to work. I teased about the other perspective. Now, in my perspective, and this probably HR's too, we have long understood, and this is probably comes more with German science and Russian science, that we really believe that how this really works is not so much that your cells are, white blood cells are crawling around your body and they bump into a bacteria and then they take it out, so much as everything has a unique energetic signature. It comes into your body automatically recognizes the frequency and sends a wireless communication via light to all the cells in your body to tell your body, hey, this substance is in there, go find it. Which makes a whole lot more sense because, how many weeks or months would it take for a white blood cell to finally bump into a bad guy before it's done its damage? So I think that's the real reason it works, and why a lot of energy medicine therapies like homeopathy and frequency delivery work so well, because once it's delivered to the body, it's almost instant because it travels by the speed of light and gets delivered everywhere. And so energetically, that's how we think it really works.
It's like an email versus Pony Express.
Yeah. Yes. And that actually goes for many other systems, like the nervous system. We have this old-fashioned concept of stepping on a nail, and it takes so many seconds for a signal to go to your brain, and your brain takes so many seconds to process it, and then so many seconds to send it back to your foot to tell your foot to move. Well, that's way too slow. We're talking, 8-9 seconds already? You're not standing on a nail for 8 or 9 seconds. It's instant. Well, that's because there's actually a wireless frequency delivery mechanism in the body of communication that's based on light. So it's not just the old-fashioned concepts that are more I would say more materialistic, where they made the body like a machine. And it's like, we're not just a machine. We're a living organism. We have a soul, we have a spirit, we have an innate intelligence. And so we're not just a bunch of parts that you can take out and throw away, which is really important since we're talking about the immune system and the lymphatic system, because out of all systems of the body, this is probably the system where the most glands are cut out and thrown away, at least in the past, as not necessary. Or if there's a problem, we just cut it out and throw it away. It seems to be the lymphatic immune system. And I think that's because for a long time, people really didn't know what the system did. So the next slide just again breaks it down a little bit more for you. We're not really going to talk about the blood immune, but you can see in the blood immune system the different components, and then the components in the lymphatic system, which we're going to get into more detail here. So let's break those down. The lymphatic system, so this is a network of delicate tubes throughout the body. It's really a circuitorial system. So it's made up of lymph nodes, lymph vessels. There's white blood cells. So the white blood cells are in the blood and the lymph. There are also lymph glands, such as the spleen, the thymus, the appendix, the tonsils, and the adenoids, right? So how many people have heard of someone had their tonsils removed or they had their appendix removed? There's even a lot of people who've had their spleens removed. And now we're realizing, of course, that was not a great idea. And unfortunately, that's what happens in allopathic medicine when your thought process is very mechanical, and you think, well, the body's just a machine, so we can just take this one part and throw it out and put in a new part. Doesn't necessarily work that way. And we find out that these parts of the body are not there by accident. They actually have a very specific role they do. So the spleen is a blood filtering organ. Isn't that interesting? It's right across from the liver, and we know the liver also filters blood, but a lot of people don't think about the spleen as another blood filtering organ, and it removes microbes and destroys old, damaged red blood cells. And it also helps make immune cells like antibodies and lymphocytes. So the spleen has a very, very important position. Years ago, they just, if you had a problem with the spleen, they would just cut out and throw it away. I thought it was really interesting. My sister, one of my sisters, had a very traumatic injury once where she was thrown from a car in an accident. And luckily, it was here in Ohio. It was in winter. So she landed in the snow. And the snow actually saved her life because it stopped the internal bleeding. And they had to life flight her to a hospital. And this was the first time I actually heard a doctor or surgeon do the right thing. The spleen was very badly damaged in the accident, but he didn't cut it out. He actually put a mesh bag around it and allowed it to heal. And then the mesh bag eventually dissolved. So she was able to keep her spleen, which is really huge because a lot of times they would just cut it out and throw it away. So very happy about that. In today's world, most people have spleen stress show up on energetic testing.
Of course.
Yep. Now the thymus is kind of right up here, and that is another lymph gland, and it filters and monitors your blood content and produces white blood cells called T lymphocytes. So the thymus is very important as well. And then you have these little lymph glands like the appendix, the tonsils, and the adenoids. And they're also really important. The appendix is probably one of the most overlooked. It's in the colon. And right after the small intestine turns into the large intestine, there's a little appendix thing that hangs down. And that's part of your immune system. And it's supposed to be filtering out bacterias and funguses and different infections and acting as immune support for the colon. So when we get things like appendicitis or the tonsils get enlarged or the adenoids, which are in the mouth, these things start getting enlarged, that should really be a warning sign to us that your lymphatic system is having a hard time filtering. We don't want to just cut them out. Of course, there's always emergency situations, but we want to try to prevent the emergency situation and actually treat these because, well, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but once you start removing these things, then you're going to have a harder time with the immune system keeping up because something has to take the place of one of these glands and what they were supposed to do.
Got it. So our immune system is this incredible network made up of the blood, the lymphatic systems, the spleen, the thymus, the appendix, working together to recognize and remember and to fight off these germs and protecting every one of the trillion plus cells in our body. But this can all be thrown off balance, right? What are some of the root causes that can weaken these defenses?
Okay, yeah, root causes. And so I guess there's one more thing we should mention because this is a big topic today. Ever since 2020, there's a whole new movement of well, the debate gets really deep, but the basic debate is between the germ theory and the terrain theory. So the terrain theory is more holistic. It's more what the naturopaths like myself believe. And that is that if you can keep the body clean, then your body's immune defenses can work and keep out the invaders. The germ theory basically says the invaders come in the body and they create the disease. So I think the problem is today is now that so many people have been in the debate, people misunderstand the debate. The debate really isn't you don't have an immune system and that all these microbes don't exist. Like there's a big movement right now that viruses don't exist. Well, I would agree viruses don't exist as pathogens, but they are something. And that's for a topic for another day. But everyone knows about parasites and bacteria and funguses. And so we're not saying those things don't exist and they can cause harm to the body. It's just from a holistic point of view, they're not the main cause. So now we're going to get to the main cause and the root cause, the lymphatic system not working right. And then once the invaders come in, if that immune system is not working right, well, now you're going to have problems. So that it becomes a secondary problem. So if you look at the slide again on root cause, number one, of course, always nutritional deficiencies, because if you don't have the basic building blocks, the body can't build anything. It needs the 90 essential nutrients to build. And if you don't have your nutrients, your body has nothing to use to build. And we know it's always tearing down cells, rebuilding cells. So we need those nutrients. Toxins and drainage pathways. Okay, so naturopathic philosophy, one of the big things, this goes back to terrain theory, you actually have at least 6, maybe 7 major elimination channels in the body. We call them drainage pathways. So number one is the liver. You have the liver, you have the lymphatic system, you have your bowels, you have the kidneys, you have the lungs, and then the skin. And these elimination channels are designed to constantly be eliminating toxins from the body in different ways, obviously. We can see that with the lymph, it's a circuitorial system. So it's gathering stuff from all over the body and bringing it into the filters, like the spleen, the liver, the kidneys, which then eliminates it from the body. We have the kidneys that are eliminating. We have the bowels that are eliminating. Even the lungs, through the conversion of gases and gas exchange, is eliminating. Your skin, you sweat, you're eliminating. And this is why when people usually have skin issues, one of the first things we look at is are you detoxing well? Because if the 6 elimination channels, and the big one first is the liver and the secondary is the lymph, if they're not open and they're not draining and eliminating, then eventually more and more systems have to kind of kick in to take over for them, and they just can't do it. And then eventually when the skin tries to do all the detox, never turns out well, and you usually break out and you get some kind of skin problem. And there's other reasons for skin issues. I mean, it comes back to gut, which is another elimination channel. So with the immune system, the first thing we should think about is it eliminating toxins? It's supposed to be gathering toxins from all over the body and eliminating them. And if it was doing that all the time, you would have a great offense and you wouldn't need the defense because it would take care of itself. Now, here's the trick. The third one on here, lack of movement to pump the lymph. You can see in the picture how it looks like a circuitorial system. But unlike the cardiovascular system that has a heart to pump it, the lymph system doesn't have an actual pump. The pumping is your movement. So when you're moving, your muscles are contracting and then relaxing, and that acts as a pump, and it moves the lymph. And this is the reason why almost everyone today has lymphatic problems. Usually for myself these days, the number one system that shows up weak on me is always my lymphatic system. Because in years past, when I was more active and I did a lot more hands-on therapy, manual massage or body work or energy work, and so I was moving all the time. Now I primarily sit and I do consultations through Zoom or over the phone, or I'm working at the computer, or I'm teaching, or I'm doing podcasts. So now my job is a lot more sitting than moving. And so if you're not moving, there's nothing to pump that lymph. And that's why most people today have a lymph problem because if you're not doing something to get it moving, it's not going to move. Another thing to think about is traumas, injuries, and scar tissue. And again, this one goes from both perspectives. You can look at it physically and energetically. So physically, with scar tissues, traumas, and injuries, you're usually going to have tissue that's been compromised. It's damaged. It's going to have inflammation. You might have adhesions or scar tissue, and that's just going to make things tighter. And the pumping action is not going to be as good. So obviously the movement's not going to be as well. You're probably going to have a lack of movement restriction, which then turns into the lymph not pumping well. On an energetic side, all these things cause blockages, or not complete block, I should say congestion in the energy circulation. And we have to remember that matter doesn't matter to energy. The energy comes first, and then the matter. So wherever the energy circulates, all other circulation goes. So whenever we see a physical circulation problem, you can guarantee there's an energy circulation issue. So if the energy is not circulating because of scar tissue or adhesions or a trauma, then that's going to relate into physical circulation issues, and that's not a good thing. Surgery, we kind of mentioned this briefly. The removal of lymph nodes or tissues, most commonly the appendix get removed. You still see a lot of tonsils and adenoids removed. And now one of the glands that's supposed to be filtering this stuff out and helping making immune cells isn't there. So what's going to happen when the lymph can't move through that area? Well, you're going to have more toxins build up. As more toxins build up, you're going to have more invaders move in. The invaders are going to come in. And you remember, we work in harmony with nature. A lot of times we have all these bacterias and funguses and parasites in the body because they're not always there just to live off of us, but to help our body function. A lot of times they move in to do a job, and their job is they're scavengers. They're here to clean up all the toxins. And if our body can't do it, then we attract things from nature to do the cleaning. Just think of a dirty house or a dirty a dump yard. What moves into the dump? What moves into the dirty house that has trash pallet everywhere? That's where you get the flies and the cockroaches and all the little critters. The rats move in, and they're there to clean up. Well, if we keep our body clean, terrain theory, you don't really have to worry about the invaders moving in much because there's nothing there for them to live off of. But once the body can't clean itself anymore and the toxins are building up, well, now the invaders are going to move in, and then they're going to create byproducts, their waste, right? And then that creates actually more toxins and more damage in their body because they're stealing our nutrients and they are causing damage. They're not just the main cause, they're just the cause. You have cancer or radiation, which can lead to lymph damage. The energy circulation we already mentioned, and then bad diet. So, and we could go in hours just on that one topic, but too many sugars, too many fake foods, just going to really strain the lymphatic system. It's going to really strain your detox systems, and they're just not going to work like they're supposed to. Anything you want to add on that one?
Yeah, I'll keep you going. You've so much to expand upon with what you're saying, and I think that the take-home message here is that the lymphatic system is truly as abundant by volume as blood. Mm-hmm. The difference between the two is blood has the pump and the lymphs don't. Mm-hmm. So we got to do something to pump it. Keep it moving, keep it breathing, keep these toxins from being stagnant. That's the key.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about lifestyle here in a second, but on the slides, I think the next thing, I put this along with root cause, I put one of the pathways on here. So out of the Alphonzo Body book, which, shameless plug, I have the books down there in the picture just to remind me of something, but this is a system or pathway called the immune vitality messenger pathway. So it's one of the deepest systems of energy. Eventually, this pathway would become what they call the spleen or pancreas meridians in Chinese medicine. They usually don't call them pancreas meridians, they call them spleen. But you can see this is a first cycle pathway. So it resonates with the color yellow. It's usually related to the emotions worry, preoccupied, distracted, like regret, those kind of things, worry, anxiety. It controls the immune system and the lymphatic system, the spleen, the thymus, the appendix. It goes through the pancreas, the tonsils. It relates to all the skin, the central nervous system, and the sense of smell. And if you can see in the chart or in the picture, you can see where it comes up the leg and it goes down into the little appendix, and it comes over and it goes into the thymus, and then it comes up, in the spleen, and then it comes up into the thymus. It goes right through the side of the throat where it's going through the tonsils, and then into the mouth, into the tongue, through all different glands in the mouth and the adenoids. So it's a very, very different pathway than what we would call the spleen pathway in Chinese medicine, because this is a deeper pathway that eventually makes the meridians up. So this is a very important pathway. And I might as well say it here because we're here. Another interesting about this, we're going to get to it later on lifestyle, but about sunlight. This is one of the interesting pathways in the body, in that it is the pathway that helps the body convert solar energy from the sun into bioenergy for the body. And it helps the electron transport chain, and there's some correlations with first cycle to copper, even though copper is primarily fourth cycle, which is blue. Copper is one of the few elements that, depending on what amino acids are attached to it, can take on all 7 colors of the rainbow. Really interesting. So copper is kind of related to this through the electron transport chain, and it's also related to fourth cycle. So really, really important pathway here. And then on the screen, I have for you the self-help. So you guys can pause the video and look at it. But basically, your left hand, which is negative, is touching the 5, which is on the inside of the ankle. And at the same time, your right hand, which is positive, goes to the tip of the tailbone, which is called the coccyx. And you're going to hold that for 5 minutes minimum. You can hold it as long as you want. The more you do it, the better. And then after so many minutes, your left hand only is going to move. So it's going to go from the ankle to right under the collarbone on the opposite side. So you're going to go to the right 22 underneath the collarbone. And the right hand is going to stay on that coccyx. And you're going to hold that for about 5 minutes or longer. And that is how you get that energy pathway circulating, all through polarity. So it's a very interesting art. You're not manipulating the tissue. You're not forcing energy. You're just simply applying a positive, negative charge on 2 very specific control points that allows the energy to move along that pathway. And that helps that pathway flow, and it's going to help everything in that system work. Now, the reason I have the 2 books down here is one's an ebook, Healing Made Simple, and one's a textbook, because in those books, we have emergency applications. And there's an application in there for how to help with stopping appendicitis. And we've had so many testimonies with it, and it really works. If you can get it before it explodes, or before it erupts, you can stop it from erupting and get the appendix to clean itself. In fact, we even had one person who it was a young child, and they were in the hospital. Their appendix burst, but the doctor was not able to come in until the next morning. And so his mother did the full application that's in, I think it's in the normal textbook, but it's in the ebook too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm positive. And the doctor came in the next morning to do the surgery. And when he got in there, the appendix was gone. It already ruptured. But the interesting thing is there was no infections. There was no nothing. He didn't have to clean up anything. He just basically stitched the child back up. Now, normally, for those who don't know, if your appendix ruptures, it's a life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
Usually because the appendix is helping fight off a lot of bad bacteria and different organisms. And if that ruptures, you can go into like a septic shock and different problems, because all that bad stuff that was in there being filtered and taken care of gets released into the gut, and then that can be absorbed right back into the bloodstream, and then you have a major problem. So you don't want that. So for those who are interested, we do have those things available for you if you want to check that out. on my website. Now, 2 more. These are 2 points. So the first point is point number 26. If that looks like Hebrew, it's because it is. You're looking at Hebrew characters there. The first one from your, Hebrew goes opposite of English. So it goes right to left instead of left to right. So the first one on the right is the modern form of the final pay. And the middle character is the ancient Hebrew characteristic. And then the one on the left is the paleo, what they would call the pictographic form. And it's actually a picture of a mouth. That's what pay means, is like a mouth. And it's right here at the back where you see those 2 blue dots on the picture. So on the back of the body, kind of in the corner of the arm underneath, is where the 26 is. And that point relates to the immune system, but it's probably the top of the list for the lymphatic system. It's the number 1 point that controls the lymphatic system. Also happens to have the most control over the breasts, especially for women, and circulation into the arms. So when you really want to work on the lymphatic system and breasts and health, and it's really interesting. It's kind of like just giving yourself a hug. So just you're touching, left hand's touching the right and the right is touching the left. And so you're kind of giving yourself a little hug like that, if you can see me, and you're just holding that for, 5-10 minutes, and that will really help the lymphatic system. The last point is more immune system. So it is still related to the lymphatic system, but it's probably the top of the list for the immune system, and it's right on the top of the shoulder blade. So if you just take your hand and go right over top, your hand is probably on it. And that's a point I check a lot to make sure it's not feeling tight or feeling like there's a little ball in there. Usually when you start feeling that, uh-oh, my immune system is starting to struggle. And so you have an application here, which is the left hand goes to the 15, which is, you can see on the bottom there. It's right by the pubic bone. You find the pubic bone and you come over to the crease on the left side, and then your left hand goes there. At the same time, your right hand is going to the left 6, which is in the inside arch of the foot. Again, about 5 minutes. You can hold it as long as you want. But once you're done with that step, only the right hand is going from that 6, from the foot, up, crossing over and going to the left 3. So you just cross over, and then the other hand staying on the 15. And that will help the 3 function, which is called the gimel in Hebrew. And that will really help upregulate the immune system.
That's
it for that section.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you talk about these energetic pathways and the positive and negative polarities that that have to remain in balance throughout the body. And oftentimes we see our bodies get stressed when those positive negative polarities are out of balance. Sometimes too much of a positive charge versus a negative charge. And so that is some of the extracurricular factors to that is what, Dr. Monzo, is cell phones, right? Not being grounded. Also important to our immune system.
Mental
emotional stress. How about teeth?
Yes.
Every tooth reflexes and crosses these pathways, right?
Yeah, and that's why holistic healthcare is so important, because you have to be able to see the body holistically. It's not so simple as to say, well, I got a bacteria. Well, why do you have a bacteria? Why is the body not able to handle the bacteria? It could be something like, I have too much worry, anxiety. It's like, what? How could that be related? Well, because it will weaken these systems, and then these systems can't take care of the bacteria. So a lot of times we want to blame something else sometimes too easily, and we don't look at it. Could it be an emotion? Could it be a problem with the tooth? Could it be I just stubbed my big toe? Could it be, I had surgery 5 years ago and, now I have scar tissue? We usually don't think about these things.
But there are some everyday things we can do to help maintain and even restore it and get ourselves back on track.
Yep. So we're going to go to lifestyle now. And of course, maybe the pathway should have been under this part, but you know me and my colors, I kind of wanted to keep it with the colors of yellow. But it's causal and it's the lifestyle. So that's the lifestyle for the ATP. So what about the lymphatic lifeline? Well, the first thing is obviously exercise. So engaging in regular aerobic activities, brisk walking, jogging, cycling, swimming to improve circulation. Another thing is lymphatic movement. Now, there's a number of things that help with the lymph. We have this little picture up here in the one corner, but there's something called manual lymphatic massage, dry brushing. The dry brush, and you can lightly brush the skin to move the lymph. In fact, to move the lymph, you don't need much pressure. So manual lymphatic massage is deep tissue massage. You're not going deep at all. This is a very uniquely trained type of massage where they're going very lightly to move the lymph. The trampoline rebounding. So this is rebounding. You're not jumping necessarily. You're just bouncing on the trampoline. And what's happening is your muscles in your legs are contracting and relaxing. So you're creating a pumping motion with the leg muscles, and that's going to get the lymph moving. There are a number of different devices out there. We have one called Flowpresso, and it's kind of like this bodysuit you get into, and then it expands with air. The air pumps into and expands and puts pressure and relaxes in pressure, and it actually does a manual pumping motion to move the lymph in the body. Here's a big one a lot of people don't think about: drinking water.
Yeah.
I think I might have skipped breathing. Breathing's supposed to be on there. It's in the picture. Deep breathing. Oh, I think I have it under stress management. There's herbal drainage support, which we're going to talk about. And a lot of times that's one of the cool things with some of the AzureWell products is we build in herbal drainage into the products. Good companies a lot of times will do that. So drainage products typically are products, usually herbal, could be homeopathic, that help the 6 elimination channels drain and move. And that's very important, specifically if you're trying to detox or if you're trying to kill off invaders, because if those 6 channels are not eliminating, you might be getting things pulled out of the tissues, but it has nowhere to go, and it's just going to get recycled, and now you're in a bigger problem because it's not getting actually eliminated out of the body. So there are actually herbal drainage support products that you can take to help move the lymph and the kidneys and the liver and the bowels and get that stuff actually out of the body. Energy circulation like ATP, which I just talked about. 3 is sleep. Sleep is super important. So we want to try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. But there's an old teaching that I have found to be really true, which is hard for us all to do. But it's said that for every hour of sleep you get before 12 o'clock is like 2 or 3 hours after. And that's hard for us to believe. And sometimes it's hard for us to get to bed early. But it really is true. It's like the more sleep you can get before 12, the more restored you actually feel. And I don't know if that's because of how the energy systems cycle. Different energy systems are doing their own diagnostics at different times of the day. So depending on when you develop problems during the day, sometimes that's an indication on how your energy is cycling and flowing.
And by those energy systems, you're referring to literally organ and gland systems, like, for example, the liver.
Yes.
And liver being so critical in the detoxification, the removal of these toxins. So if you're not getting that proper rest during that time, you're potentially compromising liver function.
Yes. And the time periods are typically larger than what people typically think, because in the meridian system, they have certain times. And then on the deeper pathways, like an ATP, the times are slightly different. So in my system, in the Alphonzo body system, when you have what we call blood messenger pathway, which pairs and eventually creates the liver meridian, its time frame when it's doing diagnostics is like 2 to 4 a.m. So if people are having problems between 2 and 4 a.m., that's an indication that when I mean diagnostics, it's like the body is putting a load on that system to make sure it's functioning right. Just like if you were to develop a car and you wanted to put a heavy load on the motor to make sure the motor's not going to blow up when someone's driving it, the body's doing the same thing. So when you develop a lot of symptoms during that time frame, that's an indication that that system is not functioning well, and there's a weakness. So if you're waking up all the time between 2 and 4, the first thing you should be thinking of is, hey, the energy system that governs the liver is having problems. Maybe there's some liver cleansing needed. And that also goes into the eyes and the brain and joints. So it goes a lot of places. So that's one of those indications as a practitioner we look at when we ask people, when do you get these problems? Is there a certain time every day? And they, yeah, it's always at, 5 o'clock. Or it's like, oh, okay. That gives us a lot of indications. Oh, yeah, the next thing, of course, is healthy diet. So we need healthy fats, probiotics, citruses, turmeric, ginger, garlic, the 90 essential. You're going to see some of those words come up again here in a couple minutes. Stress management. So engage in stress reducing activities. And then that's a little bit different for everyone because everyone likes different things. Some people like to exercise. Some people hate to exercise. So for me, I would probably have a lot of stress reduction if I was out exercising, or if I got to play hockey again, and something I don't get to do much anymore these days, or, something like that. I would have a lot of fun. Someone else might be like, I don't want to do that, but we do have to do something. And so Bible meditation, deep breathing, reading scripture, prayer, a puzzle. What do you like to reduce stress in your life? Some people like to color and like, oh, that's a kid's thing. No, there's actually a real thing about coloring. This is like melts away the stress sometimes for some people. So find the things that you enjoy that take stress off of you and engage in those type of activities. And sunlight. Okay, so it helps us make all these neurotransmitters and hormones like melatonin and serotonin, and it activates your retinol, vitamin A. It helps you make the hormone D. It improves your sleep and your immune system. So very important. And I already showed the immune vitality messenger pathway directly related to sunlight. Isn't that interesting? So the sunlight is actually helping energize the body through the energy systems. And so there's a huge correlation between how that sunlight then turns into the proper function of energy systems, which then supplies the physical systems of the body.
So we've seen how lifestyle habits, exercise, maybe not hockey, everybody, but exercise, movement, right? Sleep, stress management, and even time in the sun really could be a huge difference in keeping that lymphatic system flowing and the immune system strong. But just
maybe grounding, we didn't put that
grounding,
one in there.
So important, and the breathing that you were also suggesting for stress oftentimes. But just as important as how we live are some maybe certain nutritional strategies that can, like supplements, that can be useful for building lasting or targeted immune resilience.
Yeah, so we're going to get into nutrition. And for those who are more sedentary, who don't get to move as much, you still need to get moving. But for those people, maybe you want to implement some more of these types of things with nutrition, because that's something that you can do. So if we bring up nutrition now, you're going to see, obviously, number one is the 90 essential nutrients. Number two, herbs for the immune support. Well, echinacea, red clover, ginger, golden seal, garlic, olive leaf. Those are some of the top things you can really look for the immune support. And a lot of those help the lymph system. Now, more specifically, the next category, herbal drainage, These are herbs that have been shown to be very powerful for the lymphatic system. Cleavers, the calendula, the astragalus, dandelion, echinacea again, figwort. You have cat's claw, one of my favorite. I love cat's claw. I love using that. I love using red clover a lot. The golden seal, wild indigo root, hydrangea, and burdock. Now, some of these also cover some of the liver system, but these are great herbal drainage formulas, or they're not formulas, but they're herbals that you can look for if you want to find some type of drainage support that's really going to help the lymphatic. And we could make a list, probably double this, of herbs that help the lymphatic system, but I would say this is probably the top ones that most people are going to use and that I've seen the most results with.
You know, Dr. Monzo, I just have to ask you, and because sometimes we overkill 90 essential nutrients, and you know, you see it pop up almost on every podcast that we do together.
Yep.
Right. And I just don't want to overlook the importance of the 90 essential nutrients. This is vital to the proper alkalinity of the body.
Yep.
The proper tissue oxygen levels of the body. This is absolutely critical to optimizing the pH, the cellular of the blood as well, right? To energize and optimize cellular ATP function.
Mm-hmm.
What are these 90 essential nutrients?
Yeah, let's go over that again, because this is foundational, right? If there was one thing you were going to do, you should be taking the 90 essential, because everything after that is, you know, kind of like icing on the cake, but we're not having cake here and we're not doing sugar. But you really need these building blocks for everything else to work. And then you add to it. And the thing about the 90 essential nutrients, just to remind everyone, these are nutrients your body cannot make, but you need in order for the processes of the body to work. That's why they're called essential nutrients. So a lot of this was done by the work of Dr. Joel Wallach. He started out as a veterinarian, and then he became a naturopath, and then I think he got some other degrees, but he did all kinds of trials, studies, autopsies, and he studied how nutrients work for the body and cause diseases, and he mapped it out. In fact, he's been in court and he's won against the FDA on things, and he's done all kinds of things. He even has a big book that I think is in one of the museums that he mapped out these 90 essential nutrients. And so you need them. You can't make them. You have to get them from your diet. Now, what happens if it's not in the food anymore? Well, then you have to take it. So what does this mean? This means 90 essential nutrients are something you really have to take for life, because your body's needing them every single day. And if you don't have them, then things are going to break down. So the way to think of it is you have, think of a tank. And if this is your 90 essential nutrients you need every day, if you're this low, well, now all of a sudden you don't have what your body needs to rebuild itself and do what it needs to do. And since your body can't make these, it's not like you can just take them for a couple of days and you're going to be fine. You're going to burn right through them. And the more stress you have, the more your body's going to burn through your nutrients. And then that's when things start breaking, is when you're starting to get to nutritional deficiencies. So for the AzureWell line, you want to get the whole food multi. That's going to cover the majority of your vitamins. And it's going to cover most of your, basically all your amino acids. So there's so many vitamins. I always forget the numbers. I think there's 16 vitamins, and there's 12 amino acids. There's 60 minerals.
Yeah.
It's out of 90 essential nutrients, 60 of them are minerals. So whole food multi, and then add to that the fulvic humeric minerals, the earth minerals. Those are going to give you all the rest of the minerals that aren't in the 90. The only thing you might need to add in sometimes is core copper. But you remember, we have actual whole food supplements with Azure. So the Azure's whole food multivitamin, sometimes it will have higher copper than others because it's actually coming from the food and it's seasonal. So the one out there right now, you might need a little extra copper with it. I think the next batch that's coming out is going to be higher in copper, so you won't have to. But this is what happens when you have a real company using real foods. It's not standardized. We're not throwing a bunch of fake stuff in there to make the numbers look better on the back of the label. So whole food multi, the fulvic humeric mineral. The third thing to throw in there is the Alaskan cod liver oil, because that's how you get your amino acids. There's 3 essential amino acids you need, and that's where you get that. If I was to add a 4th thing to really boost the 90 essential, because there are some minerals you need a lot of in the body that we just can't put in a whole food because you would have to take like 20 capsules. That is the IP6, because with the IP6, you're going to get your calcium, you're going to get your magnesium, and you're going to get your phosphorus, which the body needs a lot of those things. And, usually you're taking 1 or 2 scoops of that powder. So you imagine trying to put that in a capsule. It's just not possible. So that right there covers your 90 essential and how you get them.
So now that we're swimming with the current and we need a little bit more targeted support for our immune health, what are some other things we can do?
So I mentioned the herbs for the immune and for drainage. How about foods? What food should we be looking for? Well, citrus, berries, leafy greens, fatty fish, fermented foods, elderberry, yogurt. So you're going to use the citrus foods. You're going to have your bioflavonoids in your whole food C, probably high in antioxidants. Your berries are going to be high in antioxidants. Your leafy greens have all kinds of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids, all that stuff. Your fatty fish, here's your good omega oils that you need. And when it comes to like the fermented foods and the elderberry and the yogurts, these are going to be more powerful for healing and helping the gut. A lot of the immune system is in the gut. Remember, what the lymphatic system, we have the appendix, that's in the colon. So we need to keep these areas of the body healthy. So helping to promote good gut bacteria is huge when it comes to the immune health. Other things that we're kind of like, okay, they're kind of foods, they sometimes spices, sometimes they're herbs. Ginger, garlic. Can't overestimate garlic. It's just so powerful. Turmeric, bell peppers, mushrooms. Now, this is medicinal mushrooms. We're not talking about finding some fungus on a tree and eating it, because sometimes people get really confused that you can have medicinal mushrooms that are considered a fungus, but they do not produce bad fungus and mold in the body like black mold and aspergillus and all these other bad molds that people deal with. Sometimes people think, oh, you don't eat mushrooms, it's going to make it worse. But no, we actually have medicinal mushrooms, which mean herbal type mushrooms that are actually very powerful for the immune system, very powerful for brain health and nerves and stress. So don't underestimate that. I just saw something that I'm laughing at. Others, your fulvic minerals, your whole food C, glutathione. Can't overemphasize the importance of glutathione. You really need it. Probiotics, NAC, copper, all these type of things are going to be superfoods or super nutrients for the immune system. So now I think we're getting into what does AzureWell have for you. So here's the very basic immune support with Azure. Garlic immune. There you go. Very powerful immune supporter, immune modulator. Just so important. The next one, recovery immune vitality complex. Really interesting. I like that one. I really like the name because it actually reminds me of the immune vitality messenger pathway. Interesting how that works there. But this one really supports the immune system and intestinal health. And there's a bunch of beta glucans in there. So very powerful. The olive leaf. Now that one not only has olive leaf in there, but it has the medicinal mushrooms in there to help amplify it. So it's going to improve immune health, cardiovascular health. It's really good for cellular health. It's good antioxidant. It helps with critters. So olive leaf is a powerhouse. And of course, when we're talking about the 90 essential nutrients, you need the core copper and you need whole food C. Those are part of the 90 essential nutrients, even though you could throw whole food multi on here. But these are some of the basic nutrients that you're going to want to get for immune defense after you get the 90 essential. Secondary. Oh, look at this. We have a glutathione plus, master antioxidant, boosts the immune function. Look what else is in there, though. Lemon peel, turmeric, reishi mushroom. So we're getting a lot of those other herbal spices and superfoods in there that we were talking about. So it's not just glutathione. So very powerful. You need it for the liver. You need it for methylation. A lot of people who have methylation problems can't make glutathione, and that is a big, big problem. The mushroom blend. I love the mushroom blend. It's fermented mushroom blend. Unfortunately, right now it's a little out of stock. It is coming back. You just hold it in there. It's going to be back, hopefully, I think maybe in the next season or so. So, again, these are 6 different types of fermented mushrooms, plus the whole food C complex. It has beta glucans in there, the green teas. So very powerful for immune modulation and the intestinal health. And of course, with all those other combinations in there, it covers so much more than that. Brain health, cardiovascular health, just you name it. The mushroom blend is one of my favorite things to actually put in a morning drink when it's in stock. There's one of the items from the 90 essential nutrients, the fulvic humeric minerals. And why is it so powerful? Because it really has over 70 different minerals. So it has 60 of your essential minerals in there, and then a lot of little trace minerals. So a very rich source of soil-based minerals. This is the fulvic humeric minerals is this rich decomposed plants that basically turn kind of back into a soil. We call it fulvic. And so it's not just dirt. This is actually plants that have organically bound minerals, and they decompose and they deposit all that in this rich soil. And then we take that and we have the fulvic humeric blend. And there's so much other stuff in the fulvic humeric that's just a natural byproduct of those plants. And if we're going to start listing all the things it can do for your body, we'd be here all day. So it's very powerful for upregulating all kinds of things in your body. And it is powerful. So you'll notice when you get it, you don't take a whole lot. We're just taking, I think it's like 1/4 of a teaspoon. Which
no, even less than that, sir.
Yeah, it might be like an 1/8. No, I mean, I think
8, yeah. Or 1/16, I think, actually.
At the clinic, we have a little scoop that we give people, and it's a 132.
Right.
And we tell a lot of people start just with 132 of a teaspoon, because this stuff will really start getting your bowels moving, and will really start killing things off and detoxing you. And we've had a few people, didn't want to listen. Oh, I can handle it. And they took like 2 tablespoons and they were throwing up and running to the restroom. And it's like, 2 tablespoons? Yeah. You were supposed to start with a teaspoon. This stuff is powerful. And because 60 of the 90 essential nutrients are minerals. What happens when you start putting those minerals back in the body? Your body might be starving for minerals. Most people are. All of a sudden, your body starts turning everything on and saying, hey, look, we have the building blocks now. Now we can do all this stuff that we've been waiting to do. And the body's going to get busy. And a lot of times when the body is busy doing what it was designed to do, it doesn't always feel comfortable to us. We don't want to suppress it, but there's a right way to do it slowly, so you're not having to wear diapers or something. Do it the right way. And then you have sinus support. Love this formula. NAC is in there. Bromelain, which is a enzyme, reishi mushroom, quercetin, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. Phenomenal. So when I think of this product, I don't just think immune or sinus support, but I also think immune. I'm thinking liver health. I'm also thinking it's very powerful antihistamine. So people having histamine reactions, this is actually a really great formula to really cut down the histamine reactions. And then you have lung support, supports the immune system, antioxidant support, respiratory, and of course, healthy lymphatics and anti-inflammatory. So that is another product. If you look at the ingredients, it is loaded with stuff, very powerful. The lungs are one of the elimination channels. And here are some of the last things. These are kind of others. If you need the extra gut support and you need to build your microbiome, well, then we have next step, advanced probiotics to really get that microbiome healthy, which is going to help the whole thing. So if you're tending to have a lot more gut problems, constipation, maybe you have a history of problems with the appendix, this is something to keep that microbiome healthy. Ease and comfort for joint and tissue. You wouldn't necessarily think of this as being something for the immune system, but it can help. And oftentimes when we are fighting things, what are the first signs you get besides tired? Sometimes it's sore muscles and aches and pains and discomfort. So here's a way to upregulate the anti-inflammatory systems of the body, reduce that.
The little secret to this one, Dr. Monzo, is the primary ingredient, the trademark ingredient in this particular one is andrographis.
Oh yeah, the andrographis is in there too.
Andrographis is,
huge for the immune system.
Yeah, this is major, and so I snuck this one in here. Oftentimes, yes, it does. It's great for the joints and in cleaving that cytokine response and helping support a healthy inflammatory response in the body, which is good for the joint, but is it good for potentially the lungs as well? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, some companies make a living just with that herb by itself as a product, andrographis. And so very powerful for the immune system and lymphatic system. And one of the first products a lot of people go to and test for when people need some immune boosting.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have the 3 Greens liquid chlorella, and that's on there because, well, sometimes we need to detox these toxins out of the body, because when the toxins are there, everything else gets run down. But there's 3 powerhouses in here: chlorella, cilantro, and parsley. So you're going to have a lot of vital minerals, vitamins, amino acids, and it's one of my favorite products to take for detox. And it's always good to take this product along with some drainage support. But as far as a detox, this is a great product to get those toxins out, to make sure your immune system can actually work the way it can, because if it's overloaded, you're going to have some problems. Fermented CoQ10 Plus. It does provide powerful antioxidants. Most people think of CoQ10 for cardiovascular, brain, but it's very powerful for upregulating the immune system. So, and it helps with the ATP, cellular energy. That's so important, because if we don't have cellular energy, nothing else is really going to work either. So that's one of those areas that people don't think about. You need energy to work. Well, I think that's all for the supplements. Anything else you want to throw in there?
Dr. Monzo, thank you. Again, true privilege. And I think what we've learned here is that our immune system is beautifully designed masterpiece that is powered by both, of course, the blood, but also the lymphatic system. And it's working every day to protect and restore our health. And I think recognizing some of these root causes that you went over that can potentially weaken it, and then making intentional choices in our lifestyle with rest and stress management and nutrition, right? We can strengthen, like you said, this lifeline. And now when we do that, our potential for healing is limitless.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Until next time, Dr. Monzo, can't wait to have you on again.
That's
Until
right.
next time, everybody stay AzureWell. Thank you.